Buonasera, aquí in Italia. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alessandro Ruggero. I'm the director of the Istituto Italiano di Cultura in Toronto, and I'm speaking actually from the Istituto in Toronto. And I'm very honored and happy to have the opportunity to introduce this webinar, the second webinar in a series that has been organized by the Bocconi Alumni community and the Istituto Italiano di Cultura, and I'm very thankful to Paola Floris, head of the Bocconi Alumni community chapter in Toronto, and to Bocconi, of course, Bocconi Alumni community in Milan, for this opportunity to present to the public here in Canada and let's say worldwide, given the fact that we are all connecting via web. We are not bound anymore to having meetings in presence. And for this second webinar, I'm very glad to have this today, Claudio Ceper, Bocconi alumnus and career advisor and keynote speaker of today to present a webinar on the secrets to best manage your professional career. Claudio Ceper has a long experience in career advising, and I will not take too long since the presentation will be 1.5 hours, more or less. So, and without further ado, I'm giving the floor to Paola Floris to introduce the speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessandro. And again, welcome everybody. I want to welcome our Bocconi alumni in Toronto, in Canada, but also in North America, because I know you are there, and in Italy as well, but also the friends from the Istituto. So thanks for the Istituto Italiano di Cultura, thanks to Claudio Ceper and Lyudmila Baleva from the Career Advice Bocconi alumni community, whom I invited to speak after me right now. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much. It's my turn now. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. It's my pleasure. This is a webinar organized specifically and on an exclusive base for the chapter of Toronto and the partners of the chapter of Toronto. I will very briefly tell you about the Bocconi Alumni Association. Now I'm going to share my my very short presentation. Just to let you know that we are, Bocconi is a rich and unforgettable experience for those who have studied both at the university and the School of Management. As we say, we are students for a while and alumni forever. The payoff is everyone matters, and we mean it when we say it. Everybody can contribute with in a personal way to the whole Bocconi alumni community. Just a very brief a presentation of where we are. I have to also admit people. We are about 120,000 spread all over the world in 70 chapters worldwide, 12 topic groups, which means people connected and organized around a professional interest. Then 117 class groups and more than 200 leader volunteers who coordinate and organize our activity. We have our activity is based on a rich value proposition, which sees 4 pillars. One is lifelong learning, which allows to grow and continuously learn. Then we have the networking opportunities, get together and possibilities to exchange experience and ideas of any kind, be it educational, business, and personal. Then we have also the career advice pillar. We have different activities and tools to support the career development of our alumni. And then the giving is the last, but really not the least pillar, as everything we do is based on the deep desire to give back or better, to give forward. What we do is to improve ourselves and society with a forward-looking attitude. The purpose is to create value with an outlook, as we have defined it, towards sharing and generously giving back. Now, this is my presentation. I will, in order to avoid wasting time, which is precious, especially in this moment, I'll give the floor to Claudio. Can you hear me, Claudio?
Yes, yes.
Okay. From now on, you can share your screen as you are the host. Go ahead.
I don't see the sharing. Okay.
You don't see? Okay, just 1 second then.
Yeah.
Just 1 second.
Yeah, share screen. Here, I have it.
Okay, go.
Let me just try to show. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, but it will come. If you click the share screen button.
I have done it already.
Yeah.
I hope it's not going to happen the same as we had last week.
No, don't worry.
Because I see my first slides. Let me, just a second, let me see. In the meeting.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
You see my screen?
Not yet. You're the host. Do it again, do it again, do it again. Do it again. Share.
No, it's, you should, let me, once
You
more.
are the host.
Doesn't work.
No, it will. Share screen,
Give it again to me, please. Zoom Cloud here, join a meeting.
Mm-hmm. You are the host. Just a little bit of patience.
Non prende, non viene, non entra, non riesco a entrare di nuovo. Devi rimandare. You should send me the invitation again, because I see the screen, but you don't see it.
Do you want me to turn on the slides?
No, I would prefer to do it myself, but the point is that I don't know what happened, because
do you see the?
I don't see anymore. Let me check once more. Right, just a second.
Mm-hmm.
Just 1 second, Bocconi.
Please be patient. We're learning to use the Zoom platform.
I see yourself again here. Share screen.
Okay. Yes.
Let's.
Okay. Okay.
Just a second.
Yes, it is coming. All right. Now you go to your. Now you go to your.
To my slide.
Document.
Just a second.
Mm-hmm.
It will take time. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes. Perfect. Perfect.
Okay. This is my profile. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. We can do better in the future, but okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Buonasera as well. I'm Claudio Ceper. You can see here, I hope you can read it, my profile. I'm not going to expand on that because of the time constraint, because Paolo was adamant in making it clear to me that in Canada, a seminar normally lasts for no more than an hour, whereas my seminar normally lasts for 2 hours. So my seminars instead of webinars. So with webinars, we have to readjust the situations. And of course, I'm trying to do my best in order to compress it, not to 1 hour, but at least to 1 hour and a half. Why 1 hour and a half? Because my seminars normally have an added value deriving from examples and interactivity. And interactivity means questions, answers, debates, etc. Of course, those things take time. And whereas if you go straight through each slide, it will be fast, much faster. So let's see how we can make it. Today, this seminar is my number 2 seminar, and it should help people to develop their career within the company they have chosen, whereas seminar number 1 normally helps people in identifying and looking for a new job. And there is another group of 4 seminars, which I normally present, and we are doing that in Italy, and we will do it in English throughout Europe from September on. This is an exception made because of the request of Paola. We appreciated a lot the fact that she was very, very kind to us, and we decided to make an exception for Toronto specifically. Of course, I prefer, as I said before, seminars where I can see the people in face. We are in a classroom or in a hotel, etc. Because here the problem is that you don't see the faces, you don't see the reactions, so it's much more difficult, much more complicated. But that's the way it is after COVID, and that's where we have to cope with. Today, we are going to touch 4 different subjects. The first one is competencies, the second one is personal brand, the third one is potential, and the last one is leadership. And during the personal brand phase, we will try to have an interaction with the potential volunteer and debate his personal brand in face of the others and take some conclusions out of it. So if we move to competencies, normally in the Egon Zehnder system, when we analyze and evaluate people, we see that a career is mostly supported by 2 major types of skills. The hard skills or technical skills, such as marketing, finance, HR, etc., which normally you start developing after joining the company, reach a peak between 30 and 35 years of age, and then decrease gradually, leaving space to what we call the soft skills. So it's clear that the soft skills are the major factor in a career development after the first initial 5 or 6 or 7 years. And what are the soft skills? Normally, we say at Egon Zehnder that 9 competencies in general explains the whole managerial performance. It can be 10, it can be 11, it can be 8. But out of those 9, 5 are the crucial ones, the real key. And those are, number 1, results orientation, the ability to produce and to show results. 2, team leadership vertical. What does it mean? It means that this is the ability that you have to manage a team of people reporting to you, either hierarchically or functionally, but also the ability that you have to manage your boss. And believe me, 80% of the problems that I have encountered in my 20 years of career in Egon Zehnder due to failures in joining a new company are strictly related to an inability of the new manager to understand his future boss and vice versa. Then we can then debate further on this subject later on. The third one is horizontal leadership, which is collaboration, or whatever relates to relations which are not vertical, clients, suppliers, colleagues, etc. The third one is obviously the strategic orientation, which is the complement to the number 1, which is results orientation, normally measured in terms of budgets, balance sheets, etc., within the 12 months period. And the 5th one is change orientation. The change orientation is something related to the ability to face change or even to bring change in the company where you're working. Let's make an example, the first one. When I joined Egon Zehnder in '86 and until 2008, 2009, the first Lehman crisis, the big one compared to the huge one of today with the COVID, my candidates, my C-level candidates habitually had something between 12 and 15 months to get adjusted to the new job, to understand where they had been plunged, what was the culture, etc., and so on and so forth. After the big crisis in 2009, these 16 months have been reduced normally to 7, 8. What does it mean? That everybody has become more neurotic, more anxious. And therefore, in many cases, managers introduced in the new company had failed because they had not understood on time, which is in the first month, what was the culture, what was the atmosphere of the company, without before being able to show the real results. Real results normally come up after at least 12, 13, 11 months, etc. So this is the change orientation. Now, the soft and hard skills. In the transition from hard to soft, which means in growing from, in principle, let's say the late 30s to the early 40s, the strong points often become weak points. What does it mean? It means that a good professional, a young boy of 38 or a lady who is managing a situation on himself or herself and is very successful, timely, efficient, etc., when this person gets promoted to a managerial role, which means starting to manage a team of people, be it 1 or 3 or 5 or whatever, what in the old times was an advantage, being precise, efficient, a real super performer, can become a defect, because from then on, it is more important to help people to develop their skills, accepting failures or inefficiencies, rather than being the champion and leaving your team behind you. So that's a real important point. And I've seen many, many cases where a good professional in becoming a manager has failed. What are the key factors for a career success? There are 5, but 3 of them are real more important in terms of percentages. The first one is a stretched assignment. So if you are working on an assignment and your boss decides that you can deserve a promotion, the first thing that normally happens is that you are given a new assignment, which is normally very stretched, more difficult, more complex. The second way of allowing a person to grow is to have a job rotation. You work in marketing, you might be moved to human resources or to operations or vice versa or to whatever. And the third one is a personal mentor. A personal mentor which works on 49% of the cases is indicated as an important factor, is a person, normally a senior person within the company with a senior experience, who has the personal traits enabling him to support you, to give advice without being your boss. Normally, your boss cannot be your mentor. It's a totally different role. Then we have volunteer working, professional talent management, etc. What are the factors that normally affect negatively a career? There are two extremes. The first one, of course, apart from being not very much engaged or not willing to commit and to put all your efforts into what you're doing, is a too long stay in a company or a too short stay in a company. Too short staying brings to being considered a job hopper. Job hopper are those people who normally jump from one company to another within the first 18, 24 months or so, and are people that I really disregarded in my 28 years at Egon Zehnder, because those people normally do not bring real results. The reason why they are changing frequently is that they are very brilliant, able to sell themselves adequately, enthusiastically, but then when it comes to bringing results to show the real value, the problems really come up. On the contrary, people who stay too long in a company normally show an attitude of risk aversion, of not be willing in principle to see new things, to learn new things, and therefore are sometimes rejected. There is no precise rule, but my rule of the thumb, normally when people ask the question, Claudio, after how many years you should change a company, or before how long you should not change your company or your job, my rule of the thumb, which is not Einstein science, it is just a rule of the thumb, says you should not change your job or your company before 4 years, and you should not stay beyond 8 years if you understand that from then on you are not picking up anything new, you're not improving your abilities, your understanding, your culture, managerial culture, etc. Of course, this is not a fixed rule, but in principle, it works. So those are the factors affecting positively or the factors affecting negatively a career. On top of all this, the real success factor that I've seen in all the people who have been successful leaders and managers in their career is passion. And it is confirmed by a survey that we normally conduct every year. It is an old one, but it still repeats on and on all results. The number one factors for success is passion. I have never met anyone who has reached the top, be it a consulting job, a managerial role, an artistic role, etc. I have never seen anybody successful, really successful, who didn't love what he or she was doing. And actually, if you think of entrepreneurs, normally an entrepreneur is somebody who converts a passion, a hobby, into a professional. I think we have plenty of examples from Apple to Elon Musk, etc., etc. In Italy, Nerio Alessandri with his Technogym and so on and so forth. Then there are some other factors which are very important, such as values, integrity, hard work. But the real number one issue is passion. In this statistic, there is only one data that to me is not quite clear, and it is the ability to listen, which is positioned in the last position, whereas you will see later on in my seminar that the ability to listen is an important factor for a successful leadership. Personal brand. This is the second item after competencies, before potential. And the personal brand is something that is related to both our strengths, our pluses, our advantages, and our weaknesses, minuses, etc. And of course, normally the pluses are something we do well in, we are good at, it gives energy, satisfaction, whereas of course, our minuses are something that we do not like that much, something that we cannot change, and nevertheless it affects our results and efficiency. And when we talk about personal brand, which is strengths and weaknesses, I normally, when I do a seminar in face of the audience, I hand out a piece of paper like this, where everybody is requested to put into it two items, two strengths and two improvement areas or weaknesses. Why two? Because when you refer to your personal brand, I think it's important to consider major issues. People frequently give to me a list of 5, 6 issues, but that's not useful. You really lose focus and you do not really understand, you don't get the understanding of what you really are. Therefore, I'm inviting all of you who want to do it and have a piece of paper and a pen to write down their pluses and minuses, two of them and two of them. And then if there is a volunteer who wants to share the results of his personal brand, we can try to analyze the situation. While you are writing, for those who want to do it, let's make it clear that research shows that the most efficient individuals, the most successful ones, the ones who normally reach the top, are those who understand themselves, which is those who are aware of their strong points and weak points, and therefore are able to develop the strategies who can better help them in facing situations, problems, and etc. Therefore, I think the ability to understand yourself is very important, and believe me, it could sound strange, but I have assisted so far in my last 6 years when I work as medico delle carriere, a career doctor. I have assisted and worked with 880 people in those 6 years, managers of any kind, sectors, age, sex, etc. And you couldn't believe how many people, mature people, successful people, are not fully aware of what their strengths and weaknesses are. And my task, my duty is frequently to confront them after 2 hours, 3 hours of consulting or working together, making them to understand the way they are perceived outside. And sometimes, not always, they understand where they were wrong. So let's wait for another couple of minutes and see if there is anybody who wants to debate his or her strengths and weaknesses. Is there any volunteer?
Hi, I'm Monica.
Hi, Monica.
Nice meeting you.
Nice for me as well. Can you tell us, if you are not shy, what are your 2 major strengths and weaknesses?
Yes. My 2 major strengths are a strong entrepreneurial spirit that is always compensated with a good curiosity to learn new things.
Yeah.
And passion with determination.
So you're saying entrepreneurial spirit involves, this is one, and the second one is curiosity or determination? Because they are mentioning, I understand 3 of them.
Determination.
So it's curiosity and determination. These are the 2 that you mentioned as your strong points.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. That result in an entrepreneurial spirit, is that so?
Yes, entrepreneurial spirit, and I would say, Claudio, strong passion has always moved my choice in a career path, and also physical movement. I can share a bit more.
Fine. Okay.
And since I am quite an achiever, I always set high standard for myself. I tend to have high expectation with the people I work with. Yeah. And through the experience of the past 15 years, I learn to introduce much more humility, having the luxury to work also in different culture, in different teams from different countries. And I became a bit smoother in listening and staying more in learning mode.
Okay.
The other weakness is being moved by passion, high energy, and interest. I tend to be a sprinter. And again, I learn through trial and errors and experience, and thanks to a lot of mentorship and some self-tools, that is more important to be a marathoner.
Could we say that you were, possibly you could be in principle too fast in your decision-making process, or too
more than this, Claudio, what I feel is my weakness is I self-motivate, but I'm very, not fast in decision. I would put more, I get easily bored.
Okay.
I like to create, to explore. So then, as you know, sometimes you consolidate, it's not always growing, you know, above all in business.
Okay.
It's also consolidating. And
can you tell us in 2 minutes, in 3 minutes, just in an elevator pitch, what you're doing, your career, just in a nutshell?
Yes, I was born and raised in Italy, and I started my career in Italy. And I spent 15 years in Asia Pacific, and I recently relocated to Canada. I moved by the curiosity for new culture and the interest in traveling. I had the possibility to explore position in different countries around the world, and above all, with this entrepreneurial spirit, I always try to create opportunities inside the company or opportunity for myself outside the company. I cover different kind of roles in different kind of product categories. I started in fast consumer goods, Mars Group. I move towards textile and fashion. And then I maintain the level of luxury goods towards beauty, makeup, and lifestyle home accessories.
Okay.
I had the dynamic possibility to cover front role in business development and sales, where my passion has always been. So launching new product in a new country or exploring for established brands, new possibility in new markets. But I also, considering some brands I work with where they weren't so consolidated in certain markets, I proactively create opportunity for laid the grounding for outsourcing and supply chain establishing. So compared to a normal career in business development and sales, I gave myself the opportunity also to be on the other side of the business cycle, where there is purchasing, supply chain establishment, to better understand quality issue, lead time, challenges, and so on and so forth.
What is your present position, and can you tell us?
At the moment, Claudio, unfortunately, I'm not working, but because of the contingency, not of the COVID, of our change, because it took me from Asia Pacific to Canada 2 years for APR visa.
I see.
And I just obtained no more than 7 months ago. And I had started with a consultancy here, again, for a new brand in Canada, where I was in charge of business development. And then sometimes I'm very positive, it's not a win-win situation. So I terminated this cooperation, and then it was the situation of the COVID coming.
And what was your last position in Asia Pacific?
My last position in Asia was Vice President Asia Pacific of Sales and Marketing for the big trading Li & Fong in the division of LF Beauty.
Sorry, the name of the company?
Li & Fong.
Okay.
Is one of the biggest trader in Asia, and I was VP in the division of LF Beauty. So beauty, is the so-called one-stop shop for all the big beauty brands. My main client were L'Oréal, Lux, Givenchy, Guerlain, and of the group of LVMH and Clarins. So we were.
What has been your major, among your 2 or 3 most important pluses, what has been your major propeller in your career? You've been working for how many years, if I may ask?
More than 15.
15 years, okay.
Yeah,
so
more,
what has been the major propeller? If you should say, I owe to this quality, to this plus strength, most of my career.
Always trying to think out of the box,
yeah,
and always being fast in connecting the dot in the position I were in, not simply to achieve what I was requested to do according to my role, but also to create new opportunities, not only for myself, but above all for the brand I was representing for growing. So a couple of examples, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, for Pupa, I was export manager Asia Pacific, and when I joined the company, they needed to grow Asia Pacific as a business opportunity, because they only did start 1 year before with one distributor. But after my first visit to Asia, I realized the brand awareness wasn't there. The most part of the people thought Pupa was an American brand with some connection with Italian design. So I proactively proposed to my boss and our commercial team to create the first Pupa event. So inviting the potential distributor, connecting with the press in Asia Pacific, and telling the story, because behind the brand there is generally a beautiful story.
I agree.
And in LF Beauty, it was when I've been appointed in my position, LF Beauty has been selected as preferred supplier, won a bid as a preferred supplier for L'Oréal Lux. But LF Beauty only had representative office in France and in New York, and in Hong Kong only merchandiser. So I joined the team in Hong Kong, And from day one, I needed to meet the head of the big group like L'Oreal and LVMH that we needed to serve, and understand that the leading wasn't anymore the marketing from France, but China and Korea were the main buyers.
Okay.
So,
Monica, sorry if I interrupt you, but
no, please.
we have a time constraint.
No, please, I apologize.
I'm really enthusiastic about hearing what you're saying, and congratulations for your career. But the point is just to make a quick example. Now, it seems actually that the combination of curiosity, out-of-the-box thinking, and determination, connecting the dots, is probably right, is your major propeller in your career. What has been the major problem in your career, and how were your minuses affecting in case if there was a downturn or something not equally successful?
I think I was very blessed, Claudio, not having any very low, like being laid off or being fired or so on. As I was sharing, my weakness is being very straightforward, getting bored easily. So how I overcome that, in the different position I had, I try to create new opportunities. And what is the downside? That sometimes you don't always have your line manager supporting.
So you are equally happy about all your 15 years of career?
I am equally happy, Claudio, because I didn't stay in a position to complain, but I know that we are in charge of our own situation, so we have got choices.
Okay. Okay.
So, for example, if you might want to challenge me, why I started in a very good company like an American multinational like Dolma in Italy, that is Mars Group.
Yeah.
So sales manager for large retailer, fresh graduate after an internship in Singapore, you receive formation and so on. And I just did no more than 3 years. It depends on the situation, Claudio, because we are talking about more than 17, 18 years ago. I was the first woman sales manager for large retail, joining a team of only men. And after a while, I didn't see the possibility to grow. And in good and bad, I left the so-called good position, and I restarted from zero in a textile group, Max Mara, where if you want, I couldn't, I could transfer the sales skills, but not necessarily the knowledge of the product. So I jump creating a new opportunity.
Okay. So was it by chance that you moved to Asia Pacific and now to Canada, or is it something that you expressly wanted to do?
I expressly
by the company.
I expressly created the opportunity for me to move from Italy to Asia Pacific. The move to Canada wasn't, I'm honest, in my bucket list. I'm married to a Taiwanese Canadian, and our last assignment was in Hong Kong, Claudio. We are talking about at the end of 2017, 2018. We foresee the situation Hong Kong has been badly hit with last year. So we could foresee the endover consequences, and my husband and my daughter have a Canadian passport.
Okay. And your husband is following you, or has he remained in
No, it's my husband that wanted to move to Canada. So we are here as a company. My husband grew up in Canada because he was a son of a diplomat.
Okay. Final question before opening for any, there could be a couple of comments. I'm opening for any of the 60 plus people attending, if they want to give a comment or advice about yourself, if they are open to do it. What is your, just a final comment, your future expectations? What do you plan to do? What you would like to do in the future? How would you see?
This, Claudio, is an amazing question for me, because I've been subjected to a forced sabbatical of 2 years that, honestly, considering the way I am, I wasn't prepared for. I landed in a country that I think is a good country, is a completely different working culture and dynamic compared to what I was used. as you know, Hong Kong, Bangkok, Singapore, where I live, it's very, very fast pace. I'm not living currently in Toronto, is Ottawa, so it's a very government town. I'm coming from Asia with 360 degrees of colors and nice weather to a 3.5 meter of snow. So, but I play my cards, Claudio. Two things I always maintain during my move, and the next one will be the number 12, voluntary job and sport. So I am a professional volleyball player. Everywhere where I go, I try to keep a connection with team, gym, sports.
Okay.
And volunteer.
And an ex-professional volleyball player in Italy or in Asia Pacific or where?
In Italy for the CUS Pavia.
Where? In which city you were born? Where?
I was in with the University of Pavia.
Okay, you came.
And when I was 16, I did the under 16 for the national, okay. And I grew up. Like that. So sport and volunteer.
Sorry for interrupting you, but the time constraint is
please.
Here, and therefore now if there is anyone who wants to open up and speak up directly, giving any comments, suggestions, or whatever to Monica, in a couple
Thank you.
We have a couple of questions. We have a couple of opportunities. If there is anybody who wants to make a comment on Monica.
I muted Monica, and please, whoever wants to ask a question, to unmute himself or herself. I also registered several questions, so once you have finished, I will tell you the questions.
Thanks. And then I think that we could, let's see if we can have a couple of comments on Monica. At the end of the seminar, I might myself also a comment, just to be not to be too imposing. And then we might treat one question and then leave some others to a second part of the seminar. Anyone wants willing to volunteer to make a comment, a sincere and open comment? Any comment? That's the disadvantage of the online seminar. Normally, when we are facing each other, that's much more easy and obvious. Well, let's make myself a comment. Of course, it seems to me that Monica is a very successful lady with a fabulous career in the fast-moving world, jumping from country to country. So she's not a typical Italian manager, because normally Italian people are more local in a way. So she really went in the good times to Asia Pacific. She came back apparently, if I well understood, for family reasons to Canada. Is that so? Therefore, if you had stayed there, apart from Hong Kong problems, etc., you probably would have continued along the same line, right? You are facing a difficult readjustment to Canada, apart from the snow. I think it's a different culture. Normally, the way we see Canada here from Europe is one of the best possible outcomes for a European to go to work, much more than the States. You agree on that, or?
I agree, Claudio. I think it's always a matter of personal story and our attitude. So I have been extremely honest, and you name it, has been a big adjustment. Plus, for personal reason, when you are in a couple, there is always who supported the other. I supported my husband that wished to restart from Ottawa, where he was from, to show, since I mentioned he's an Asian, to show our daughter where he grew up. So
you have a daughter? Can I ask you? You have a daughter?
Yeah, of 10 years old.
Okay, fine.
Sophia Pearl. And so it's fine, Claudio. It was just a bit of roadblocks because of the document. Ottawa is quite a dormant town. The energy is a government town, so it doesn't really reflect our background and our international expectation. But as I mentioned, it's a matter of attitude and how proactive you are. So someone put in the chat to network. I think I'm a master networker because I like to meet people and connect and so on. The problem is when you are in a town and you want to be in a different town, like for us is Toronto, the next step, is not easy. And in the contingency of the COVID, is even more difficult, but we create our own path, and I'm ready to restart.
Monica, sorry, how close are you to a next possible job?
Quite close. Recently, I had a couple of calls, and next week I will head to Toronto, and with the social distance and whatever is requested, I will have the possibility to brainstorm a couple of opportunities.
Through a headhunter or through your personal network?
No, personal. More than personal network, personal proactive action, in the sense that I tell you in 1 minute what I did. I answer for a very normal position of a sales manager in a company that I study, and I go prepare. Through the LinkedIn email, I contact the CEO of this company. The CEO as a business partner, he answered, he sent my profile and my contact to the business partner, and the business partner that is in charge of the head of business development and says, reach out. I'm not okay for the position that I apply because they think, I mean, it was a sales manager position. They praise more my experience of supply chain in Asia Pacific and business development. So this is the way. So honestly, at Hunter, Claudio, I haven't been so impressed here in Canada, and I proactively contacted, and I studied the profile of a Hunter, who is in your industry and so on. Canada is very, for my humble reading, very conservative. Is Canada for Canada. So I think proactive network and proactive contact with company. I'm moving in 2 directions, Canadian company that want to grow external, international, and Italian, not so many, / European company that need a presence to grow in the market of North America.
Monica, sorry if I interrupt you, but really the time is over.
Thank you.
I appreciate I can tell you that I'm sure that you will find very soon a new job thanks to your enthusiasm, to your credibility, and to your internationality, plus the results that you've achieved in the past. However, having been the volunteer, I'm available, I'm at your disposal in the future, whenever you want to get in touch by phone or by email, if you need any advice, although I'm not, of course, in Canada.
No, with pleasure.
Having worked in Egon Zehnder for 28 years in several international assignments, I'm still pretty much aware of what's going on. And so whatever I can do for you.
I'm very grateful for this opportunity, Claudio.
The revision of the CV, etc. You can do it.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for this.
Really, Monica, for your enthusiasm and your openness.
Thank you.
Is there one question that we can tackle for now?
Yes, there are several questions.
Let's see the first one. Let's go by step by step.
I see many, this is Paula, who's saying, I see many millennials willing to move very rapidly from one job to the other. How to convince them it is not good for their career?
Well, it is very simple that if you want to be, of course, number one, there is a big difference between the Anglo-Saxon world and the Latin German world, the European one vis-a-vis the American or the Australian, etc. So in the Anglo-Saxon world, normally jumping from one job to another one is more acceptable. There are averages that show that whereas in the States people change job every 2.5 years, in Europe it tends to be 3.5, 4, apart from new generations like the Z generation, etc. But overall, I remember lots of my clients making this type of a comment. If this person jumps from one company to another, and this person, I remember a real case. It was a 40 years old person who had already in his past reservoir something like 4 or 5 moves. And my client said, okay, the guy seems very brilliant, but why should we hire him and then have him lost? And then should we will lose him in about 18 months, which is the average of his stay so far. And also, very frequently, if a person jumps from one situation to another one, it is very likely that this person has not been able to prove what he is really able to do. Because when you join a new company in the year number 1, normally you try to understand where you jumped in. what's the environment, what's around you, and you start to understand the situation, etc. In year number 2, you normally start producing the real actual results. In year number 3, the results are confirmed or not, are, let's say, solidified. And in year number 4, you can start getting to an helicopter view and looking around whether there are opportunities, or preparing yourself maybe to jump to a major responsibility. So if somebody moves in after 18 months or so, it's very critical. And what I've seen, in order to advise people not to do that, is that most of the people who failed, apart from not getting in line with their future bosses, is jumping too frequently from one job to another one, especially leaving something which is solidifying and getting into something new because they were curious, interested, etc. And at the end of the day, whenever you change the culture, the environment, the people, there is a risk. So that's my answer. Okay.
Yes, another question. 2 people, Paolo and Paolo, ask about passion. One is, how do you detect passion during an interview? And then, how do you detect passion in a CV or cover letter?
The first thing is to express yourself clearly. Speak up. That's the number 1 issue. It's asking questions, getting prepared to an interview. Too frequently, I've seen people who were invited by me to come to an interview, and I sent to them, let's say, some days before the interview, a mail detailing the job description, the type of company, the size, the situation, etc., and so forth. And those people were coming to the interview asking basic and stupid questions that should have already understood by reading, simply by reading my email. So if you come to an interview unprepared, if you do not try to get as much as you can out of the situation, of course, provided the headhunter of the company is explaining to you what is the name of the company. But again, be aware, be prudent vis-a-vis a headhunter who asks you for an interview and does not disclose the name of the company. Frequently, there is no company. Those people are just asking for information about your company, etc. So if you get the name of the company and you do not make any effort to try to study, to grab into what you can find in social, in the balance sheets, etc., that's a sign of no interest. The second, as I said before, asking questions. And the third one is expressly explain that you are interested into that position, that you are passionate about. And of course, it can be something totally new. And then you have to explain why you are interested and are passionate about those totally new things. Or it can be something you have done already in the past and therefore restate your interest. Did I answer the question?
I think so.
Ludmila, let me go on for a while,
yes,
and then we can take another couple of questions
yes,
for the sake of time. Here I'm showing, and I presented that already before, I think everybody had the time to read it. It's a clear-cut example, a little bit detailed maybe, of one of my clients who described his major pluses and minuses. And I think it's an example that everybody can use and write down his or her own situation. This strange chart means one concept, an important and really paramount importance content, which is whenever you have pluses and minuses, make sure to improve your performance, your future potential, etc., to devote most of your attention, number 1, to improving your pluses rather than trying to correct your minuses. Of course, if your minuses are not strategic, if they are not disastrous, if they are not something really impossible to bear, but if those are normal situations, focus first on improving your pluses. This is something stated in a wonderful book by Zenger and Folkman. Zenger and Folkman are American coaches, very traditional, long lasting in the marketplace. And they wrote a nice book, which I read, which is The Extraordinary Leader. And they, together with me and together with my colleague, stressed this point. If you really want to make a successful and fabulous career, first of all, work on improving your pluses, your strengths, rather than trying to cancel your weaknesses. Because, by the way, working on pluses is something that you do with pleasure, that it's familiar and easy for you. Cancel or reduce weaknesses is much more painful, and it sometimes implies a help from an outside source like coaches, professionals, etc. So this is my important message, and it is not my message, it is an Egon Zehnder message, and it is also recognized by a lot of scholars.
Actually, you answered a question, Luca's question, who was asking whether it's better to work on weaknesses in order to reach an average level or to improve a lot our strengths and reach an exceptional level. This is the answer to your question.
Great, it's a good coincidence. Now, we are talking, we are approaching potential, and in approaching potential, which is the third slide from now, this is something related to Professor David McClelland at Harvard. And Professor McClelland worked on motivational components. And he expressed that there are three major factors that characterize our personalities: achievement, affiliation, and power or influence. Of course, each of them has consequences in terms of achievement means I want to make things better, and I focus on improvement, efficiency, individual effort, etc. Affiliation means I want to get along with people, and the focus is on friendship, relationship, etc. Influence is I want to have impact. I want to control and influence others, sometimes even in a very strict way. These three basic components have other consequences, and I think, Ludmila, that later on people can grasp this seminar, so can keep those data. But there are key thoughts, energy coming from, problems coming from, and hobby. Apart from hobbies that, in my view, are not perfectly in line with the first, the preliminary hypothesis, I think that those things are very useful in order to understand who we are. And I would like to ask, with a very quick answer to Ludmila in writing, where does the majority of the people attending this seminar belong to? Be it to affiliation, to achievement, or to power and influence, looking at the major data. If you can send a quick, choose just one, of course. Each of us has all of the three. I'm both, let's say, moved by achievement, by affiliation, and by influence. But I have one of them which is much, much stronger than the others. And at the end of this answer, I will make it clear for you. So let's see how does this audience respond, whether it is consistent with the other 146 seminars that I conducted with Bocconi around Europe and Italy, or whether this is not aligned with that. Are you getting answers?
Yes, yes.
Many of them already?
Yes, yes.
Meaningful?
Meaningful.
Can you try to...
By far, it seems that achievement is the word. And there is one person saying influence and another one saying a good balance of the three. Yeah,
okay.
Achievement again.
So that's perfectly in line. It always happens, except for some exception, that most of the people belong to the achievement orientation, but the second one normally is affiliation. In some cases, especially in Spain, in southern Italy, I saw cases of affiliation prevailing slightly over achievement. But I can tell you one very simple secret. In Egon Zehnder, where I was for 28 years, as I said before, and I was together with another, when I left, 200 and plus partners, the great majority of the Egon Zehnder consultants and partners belong to the achievement area. And actually, looking at the Myers-Briggs evaluation, psychological evaluation, I was an ESTJ, which is perfectly consistent with achievement. So here in Toronto, the story is exactly the same. Any other question related to that, or we can move on? I don't hear you, Ludmila.
More or less achievement is the word. Some people say different priorities, combination for different people, but basically achievement is the
Okay.
word.
Can I ask you whether lots of people have already abandoned the meeting, as we are a little bit?
No, we have 72 people. 71 is waiting
still
to
attending. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
probably
72 people are still connected.
Okay. So far so good. Okay. Now let's move to the last issue, which is potential. This is the definition of potential created years ago and still validated by Egon Zehnder. Potential is, of course, the leadership feature that anticipates how a person can have big results in the future. Let me state for clarity that potential is not only related to young high potentials, the typical 30 years old guy who is pushed through the rankings to achieve stellar positions just because he is more clever than the others or more astute, etc. I have seen 55 or 60 years old people, sometimes still in operation or even retired, with a huge potential to contribute further to the economy, to the company, to the others. And therefore, potential is not something limited to the age. Each of us can still have potential even in the senior age. However, the main 4 pillars are, moving from the back, inspiration. Inspiration means, in a way, leadership, the ability to conquer the minds of the others and the hearts, to connect, to be a sort of an example. The second one is insight. Of course, intellectual agility, open-minded, but not IQ. The IQ is not a predictor of success in a managerial role. It can be a predictor of success in a consulting role, in a strategic consulting role, yes. But an analysis that we were making repeatedly in Egon Zehnder, interviewing more than 600 top managers throughout the world, indicated that the main intellectual factor for success was not IQ, but EQ. And EQ means emotional intelligence, and it is a combination of insight and inspiration. It is closely related to leadership. The third one is determination. It is one of the pluses that Monica expressed to me, and I agree, it's a very powerful propeller, and it's the energy, the passion that you put into something, and the ability also to overtake problems, to, let's say, use at the best level you can your resilience. But the real key factor for reaching or for expressing your potential is curiosity. And again, thanks and my congratulations to Monica, because she mentioned both curiosity and determination. I'm sure she will resume a very powerful and successful career after having let's say, adjusted the Ottawa-Toronto situation, because curiosity is what we call the potential for potential. According to our studies, and I see it every now and then with my people, with my clients here in Italy, if you do not have curiosity, if you are not ready to learn new things, to face new situations, to take, in a way, some calculated risk, there will be no potential. All the rest, if this is not bound by curiosity, does not really express the full potential. Okay? Here I'm showing something which was prepared by Roger Abravanel, a long timer with McKinsey and one of the top directors in Italy and abroad. And it's an example of advice. But the real one, the one that really struck me, and I put that in a special color, is don't fear failure, welcome its hidden benefits instead. And it is also linked to curiosity, because if you don't try anything new, if you are not open to learn something new, to face new situation, taking, in some cases, calculated risks, you will never risk failures and you will never learn anything new. And I can really confirm it on my side. I'm 74 years old, 74. And in my career, I had the first 12, 14 years as a manager, then 28 years in Egon Zehnder as a headhunter, a senior partner later on, etc. And those last 6 years as a consultant, as a small entrepreneur. Believe me, what I really learned in my career, in my long career, was through mistakes, trial and error, not through successes. Because sometimes successes are very nice, very beautiful, you feel encouraged, etc., but lead you to not see the whole picture, which is what happens when you get into a wall and are really struck by some problems. Any other question we can touch? One?
Yeah, yes, many. Concerning networking, Nona says networking in Canadian market is a key. I think to have an elevator pitch style career summary is a good idea. Then Nicolette says Canada is extremely conservative and Toronto even more than a lot of the country. Yes.
And sorry, what does it imply that personal networking is more important than working through headhunters, or did I get the point? Or?
This I don't know, but they underline the fact that networking is very important. Well, networking is people and also networking with headhunters, I imagine.
Okay, I can tell you frankly. At the same time, I'm showing here another question. And while I'm talking about a personal network for a few minutes, I'm asking the participants if they want to send you, Ludmila, a very quick answer saying made or born. So this is the next question, and it is a very important question, whether they believe that leaders are made, which means that they become leaders no matter where they come from, or whether leaders must be already born naturally, being a leader when they are children or so. So that's my next question, and I'm asking you to give an answer, and then we will debate about that. But let me tell you about personal networking. The ideal situation in Europe, apart maybe from UK, is that if you get in touch with an headhunter, sending around dozens of curricula, with the generic outlooks, summaries, or ill-conceived cover letters, you don't get practically zero, you don't get any result, any answer. And that's what happened to many of my mentees. The ideal situation would be to treat headhunters as part of your network, which means identifying, I think that Monica did something like this, identifying a couple of relevant headhunters in your market, possibly belonging to reputable consulting firms, and working in the industry which belongs to your experience. Because if you try to go to a totally different industry through an headhunter, you are wasting your time. Headhunters never make something totally new or creative. Why? Because headhunters are paid by their clients, and clients who pay for a bill want, number one, consistency, not creativity. The creativity is something you can obtain through your personal network, through the people who have worked with you, who have known you, who have been your bosses, your colleagues, your clients, your suppliers, consultants, and with whom you can exchange on a peer-to-peer level situations, suggestions, opportunities. This is the way that works 90% of the cases, whereas the random sending around curricula to people you do not know or who have never met you in the past means just making something which is totally useless. So that's a very important point. It can look a little bit naive, but it is the way it works here in Europe. Okay, do you have answers to leaders are made or born?
Yes, the prevailing word is made, but there is a good fight with both, in the sense that one needs to have certain traits that could be then developed.
Yeah, of course, I agree. It's like the case of the personal motivator we saw before from David McClellan. There is no one who has just only achievement or only control. Each of us has part of it, but there is a prevailing part. And I agree with the made solution, because actually I've seen a lot of people who started with a quite normal situation, and they became leaders through something which I can explain to you. First, then I go back to the previous slide. Are leaders made or born? Again, a study conducted by Herminia Ibarra, who wrote it years ago on our magazine, Egon Zender. The results is based on 823 interviews, and still repeated, is that 83% of the people thinks that the leader is made. It's not a question of DNA. 11% do not agree, and 6% are rather uncertain. And what is the secret? What are the secrets to become a good leader, to grow into a leadership position, to develop your natural leadership skill? There are three factors, three main factors. The first one is obviously a motivation. If you are not ambitious, if you are not inclined to go there to reach that level, I mean, you better don't waste your time and devote your attention to something else. The second one is a continuous improvement plan. What does it mean? Obviously, it means making exercise. It means studying. It means trying to get into stretch assignments, as I was explaining before, trying to hope for a job rotation, trying to move abroad. If you have spent 5 years in Italy, the best thing to increase your ability and to become a citizen of the world is try to go in Asia, or to the States, or to Canada, or to other European countries, or even to the Eastern European countries, which today offer a lot of opportunities in terms of economy. But the third one, the key one, is the role model boss. This is the most important one. And I remember a seminar I conducted 3 years ago. It was this type of seminar, number 2 seminar in Brussels. In Brussels, I made already 4 seminars throughout the years. And I remember that when I said the key factor is the role model boss, which means having lived enough time together and learning something, picking it up from your boss, which should be a leader. I remember a guy, we were in the Perlimon Palais in the EC building. I remember a guy saying, yeah, Claudio, I agree with you, but if on the contrary, I have a very lousy manager who is not a leader, a selfish person, a manipulator, dishonest, you name it, etc., etc., etc. If I look at the way he behaves and then try to do exactly the opposite, I could become a good leader. My answer was, it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. This is not something mathematical. This is not something scientific. This is something that you absorb day by day, living close, looking at the way your boss behaves. And if the boss is not a leader, you will never become a leader, believe me. And my advice in those cases, if your boss is not a leader and you came across a situation that was not analyzed in depth, make sure you're trying to get rid of it and go away, fly away as fast as you can. Of course, if you choose your boss, you are hired by a proper leader, but then this person changes and the new boss comes up and this boss is not a leader, again, my advice is make your experience in that company as short as possible. Or if you can, go to the boss of the boss. It's very risky, but in cases it works, and ask this boss of the boss to move you out of the non-leader boss. And again, frequently the top chief executives know exactly and know well who are among their subordinates, their leaders or not. But not always you can change the situation. Sometimes there are some breaks or regulation that make it impossible. Any other question before moving back to something else related to the leadership?
Yes. Any suggestions for effective networking in a COVID world? Emails and cold calls are not generally effective, while the situation will continue for a while.
Well, that's a very interesting question, because when I was in the lockdown in the mountains in Courmayeur for 2 months with my family, by the way, because we went there for a skiing week, and then we were blocked by the lockdown, and we arranged, we got to receive our computers, etc., from Milano there. I was with my son, with my daughter, the nephew, my wife, etc. And each of us was working on the computer. And there in March and April, and even part of May, I assisted some 20 of my mentees, some new, some old. I got information from at least 4 of them. They had been hired by new companies through online contacts, not 1, 3, 4, 5. So it is not true that the COVID prevents people from being hired. It is true that COVID requests sometimes new types of abilities. And one of them is communication. I don't know how I'm resulting today, apart from my a little bit rusty English. But the point is that having to talk to people through a small screen where people see only your face, maybe your shoulders, but no more than that, with the electric lights or so, it has become much, much, much more difficult to create an engagement with your counterpart, because with the counterpart in presence, you can offer a coffee, you can look at the body language, you can make a joke, you can make the joke as well here, but it is less easy. Everything is more artificial. Everything, I cannot see the faces of yourself. I cannot see whether what I'm saying is well received or made you bored. I cannot see whether you're using and playing with your cell phones, which I can see when we are in an hotel, in a meeting room, etc. So the communication has become more and more important. And communication means not only what you say, but also your attitude, the tone of the voice, the way you look into the screen, how you are preparing yourself before the interview. So today, with the COVID, we have to get used to a new way of improving our communication. It is more electronic, it is less natural, but that's the way it is. And believe me, lots of people change jobs even during the COVID. By the way, there are other implications which are not part of this seminar in terms of leadership. Just let me mention you one thing. The leader in the COVID, the top leader in the COVID situation has to be by far an optimistic one, not a pessimistic. If you are a pessimistic, you will very likely fail much, much more than before the COVID. And there are other implications which are not part of this seminar. So let's go back to another point, which is some aspects of leadership. I've tried to recap 3 major experts, according to me. One is Martin Seligman, who wrote What You Can Change and What You Can't. He is a sociologist in the States. And he said that the top leaders are able to make tough decisions, normally caring for the others, and are good listeners. Jim Collins, I think that each of us should have read at least once, From Good to Great. It's a sort of the Bible of management. And Jim Collins says that good leaders are ferocious in their determination, humble, strong values, so they care for their people, and are able to listen. My colleagues, my ex-colleague Claudio Fernandez-Arauz, who was the person in charge of all the education and research in Egon Zehnder, who wrote It's Not the How, the What, but the Who, his second book after his retirement, says in a very adamant way, great leaders are great listeners. And that's why I explained before in the passion slide that when it is said that listening is not a prerequisite for leadership, I do not agree. And actually, listening is an important point. By the way, the point is, listening means not hearing. Listening is different from hearing, such as in French, entendre is different from écouter, or in German, hören is different from fühlen, and in Italy, sentire is different from ascoltare. I mean, the ones who count is in Italy ascoltare and non sentire. What does it mean? That if you hear something and you put that into yourself, then this becomes listening. And this can become something you can work in on that and take care and use it in your managing with the people. If you do not make this introiezione, it doesn't work at all. Are there any other questions? We are at the end of the seminar. We are just 25 minutes beyond schedule, but if there are, how many people are still attending? Two?
There are 66 people.
Okay. If there are other questions, I am available to stay for another 10 minutes. Otherwise,
there's one relevant question concerning the leaders, regarding ineffective leaders. If one has one as a boss, does that not show that the company tolerates such bad or negative behaviors? That reflects the whole culture of the company. If one leaves this bad manager and the suggested 3-4 years you speak of has not been achieved, how do you regard that?
Yeah, it's a good question as well. Thank you. I thank the person who asked the question. Well, yeah, I agree. Companies normally should have as much as possible good leaders, good managers, but the reality is not this. And I would say that even in my experience, I've come across very good companies with, I would say, 10 top leaders, 10 good people, good managers, but one of them is not okay. But why this person cannot be, why the company cannot get rid of this person? Because this person maybe has a strong understanding of some specific situations, or has a strong technical hard skill that the company cannot get rid of. Of course, sooner or later, poor leaders, poor managers will be pushed out of a company. But in some cases, it takes ages. And frequently, many companies first lose best talents before come to the conclusion that they have to get rid of the poor managers. But that's the situation. And some cases, poor managers are tolerated by their bosses because they complement their bosses or because they are friends. I had a case 2 days ago, a client who came to me saying, look, I want to leave this company because I have a colleague in the marketing side. This guy is a young guy, 38. This guy is really at zero, but he is the son of a good friend of the managing director of the company. And therefore, this guy is afraid of getting rid of these real weak managers. So I cannot obtain my advantages, my promotions, etc. So I will leave the company. It's the case that happens every day.
Okay, there are questions about the slides and the registration. Yes, the registration must go into post-production, and in 10 days' time, we will send it to you, the link of the integral registration, the full registration, as well as the presentation. And we will also send you a link to a questionnaire, which we would like to you to fill out just to help us improve also in the future. And also, for those who speak Italian, please be aware that on the 15th, on the 23rd of June, and then on the 2nd and the 9th of July, there will be the remaining 4 episodes of the series of the personal branding series in Italian. So you can subscribe. This time you have to go through the website of the Bocconi alumni community. So go to www.bocconialumni.it, and then there is a calendar. Click on the dates. You will see, in any case, you will see the ads, and you can register. I will give the floor to Paola, who I see already ready to intervene.
She can conclude.
Yeah, just a final thank you to both of you, Claudio and Ludmila. Thank you for this interesting webinar. I have received so many comments in my on my mobile because so many good feedback about this webinar. So thanks again. It was really interesting, a lot of wisdom and yeah, a lot of insights. So thanks again. For all of you who are in this call, in this webinar, of course, next webinars as Ludmila has suggested, but also next week with us, we have another appointment, always with the registration in Zoom and talking about digital and art. So we change topic. Thanks again. Have a good day and have a good week.
Thank you, Paola. Thank you, Ludmila. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you all. Goodbye.